The man who swam away from hell. If you think you've heard every prison escape story, think again. Hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear was buried in official reports, sealed behind concrete walls, and whispered through the cell blocks of Rikers Island. The prison New York tried to forget. The night was cold, the air thick with the smell of the East River. A helicopter circled low, its spotlight slicing through the dark water. Officers on the shoreline shouted over radios, scanning the ripples below. Minutes earlier, an alarm had blared through Rikers Island, code red, inmate missing. Guards scrambled, sirens screamed, and the prison's floodlights turned the sky into a white inferno. Somewhere in that chaos, one man had vanished. His name was Daryl Reese Coleman, a small-time hustler with a big-time dream. 33 years old, born in Brooklyn, raised on the streets, and locked up for armed robbery. But Coleman wasn't violent. He was clever, patient, and obsessed with freedom. For weeks, he'd studied guard rotations, watched the tide patterns from the recreation yard, and even faked an ankle injury to get transferred to the prison hospital wing, the only building with a window overlooking the river. By midnight, Coleman's plan was in motion. He'd pieced together a makeshift wetsuit from stolen trash bags and kitchen gloves, sealing them with melted toothpaste caps. He used a stolen janitor's uniform to slip past a lazy night guard, his badge hidden under a mop bucket. Security cameras weren't yet digital in 1988. Most were grainy, unreliable, and often ignored. Coleman moved like a shadow, down maintenance stairs, through an unlocked service door, and into the cold night air. The East River stretched before him, black, violent, and freezing. Every inmate knew that trying to swim across meant certain death. The currents could drag a man under in seconds. But Coleman had prepared. He'd studied the water temperature, built his stamina in secret, and marked a spot where discarded construction debris formed a narrow escape route. By the time guards realized he was gone, Coleman was halfway across, fighting the waves and wind. His lungs burned, his arms felt like iron, but the lights of Queens shimmered ahead, a promise of life beyond walls. When his feet touched the slimy rocks near the shoreline, he screamed into the night, laughing like a madman. He'd done what no one had. He'd escaped the island. For 3 days, New York buzzed with headlines about the man who beat Rikers. Reporters called him a legend. Locals whispered that maybe he deserved to be free. But freedom has a price. And when Coleman opened his mouth to brag about his escape on television, the same guards he'd humiliated were already plotting to silence him. Because what he didn't know was this: someone inside Rikers had helped him get out, and they weren't done using him yet. The price of freedom. When the cameras stopped rolling, Daryl Reese Coleman wasn't a hero anymore. He was a liability. The city wanted to save face, the Department of Corrections wanted answers, and someone deep inside Rikers wanted him gone. Reporters swarmed his neighborhood in Queens, flashing cameras in his face as he retold his escape like a celebrity. But behind the smiles, his eyes carried the look of a man being watched. Within days, the FBI and the NYPD's Fugitive Task Force reopened his case. Officially, it was to determine how he escaped. Unofficially, it was to find out who helped him. The prison's warden, Captain Lionel Marks, a man known for his spotless record and cold demeanor, publicly promised a full investigation. But behind closed doors, Marks was panicking. He'd spent years covering up corruption inside Rikers, drugs smuggled by guards, beatings buried in paperwork, and payoffs from inmates' families. Coleman's escape had pulled back the curtain. Meanwhile, Coleman was living in hiding at an old girlfriend's apartment near the East River, just miles from the very prison he escaped. He thought he was safe, invisible, but he wasn't. Someone was leaving signs: a cigarette stub on his windowsill, footprints near the back door, a phone that rang once and never again. One night, while watching the late news, he saw something that made his blood run cold. His ex-cellmate, Andre Stax Morales, was found dead in a construction site near Rikers. The news anchor called it a robbery gone wrong, but Coleman knew better. Stax was the one man who knew the details of his plan. Terrified, Coleman tried to reach out to a reporter who'd offered to tell his side of the story. But the line was dead. Every time he stepped outside, unmarked sedans seemed to follow. Then, one afternoon, as he was walking through a deserted underpass, Two men in plain clothes cornered him. They weren't cops. Their voices were too calm. Their threats too specific. "You should have stayed quiet, Reese," one of them said. "You were never supposed to make it off that island." They didn't kill him. Not yet. Instead, they handed him a burner phone and a message. Needed a warehouse on the Brooklyn docks if he wanted to live. Coleman realized something deeper was at play. His escape wasn't just a break for freedom. It was a cover-up gone wrong. Someone had orchestrated it. Now they wanted to erase the evidence, starting with him. That night, the rain fell hard over the East River as Coleman stood on the edge of the pier, staring at the warehouse lights flickering in the distance. He was tired, paranoid, and desperate for the truth. But what waited inside that warehouse would unravel everything he thought he knew about his escape, and reveal the darkest secret hidden beneath Rikers Island. The secret beneath the island. The warehouse smelled of oil and salt, the floor slick with rainwater that had blown in through shattered windows. Darrell Reese. Coleman hesitated at the threshold, the burner phone heavy in his pocket. His pulse thundered in his ears. The East River lapped softly against the dock outside, a haunting echo of the night he'd swum to freedom. He stepped inside. The massive metal door creaked shut behind him. "Reese!" A voice called from the shadows. It was calm, deliberate, voice of someone in control. A man stepped into the light, wearing a dark trench coat, his face half hidden under the brim of a hat. "You should have stayed quiet. You've caused a lot of problems." Coleman stiffened. "Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "Let's just say, I work for the people who own Rikers." Behind him, another figure emerged, and Reese froze. It was Captain Lionel Marks, the prison warden himself. His expression was cold, his hands gloved. "You think you escaped because you're smart," Mark said. "You escaped because I let you." Reese blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Mark stepped closer, the dim light glinting off his badge. "We needed a distraction," he said quietly. "There was an internal investigation, corruption, missing evidence, drug routes. We were days from being exposed. Your little swim bought us time." Reese's stomach turned. The pieces fell into place. The unlocked maintenance door, the lazy guard, convenient camera outage. He hadn't escaped despite the system. He'd escaped because of it. He'd been their pawn. Then why kill Stacks? Reese demanded. Marks didn't answer. The other man, the one in the trench coat, stepped forward. "Stacks talked," he said simply. "And you went on TV, turned this into a circus. You almost made people ask the wrong questions." Reese backed up slowly. "So what now? You gonna kill me?" The man gave a thin smile. "Not if you can help us again." He handed Reese a thick envelope. Inside were photos, grainy images of guards smuggling packages into the prison, hidden caches in food trucks, even a body being carried through a service tunnel. "You're going to deliver these to a reporter, but you'll tell them this was all part of your plan. You'll take the fall. You disappear quietly. We clean up the rest." Reese felt the rage boiling inside him. They wanted to use him again, this time as their scapegoat. He glanced toward the exit, measuring his chances. Then he noticed something, a small red light blinking on the ceiling beam above. A hidden camera. Someone else was watching. "You're not the only one recording things anymore," Reese said softly. He pulled a small recorder from his pocket, the same one he'd used to document his TV interviews. It had captured everything since he entered the warehouse. "If I don't walk out of here, this goes to every news station in the city." Mark's composure cracked for the first time. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "Neither do you," Reese shot back. A gun clicked. The man in the trench coat aimed it at Reese's chest. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Just the whisper of the river, the hum of the city beyond. Then a siren wailed in the distance. Flashing red and blue lights filled the cracks in the warehouse door. Someone had tipped off the police. In the chaos that followed, gunshots echoed, shouts blurred with thunder. When the smoke cleared, the warehouse was empty. The burner phone lay cracked on the floor, the envelope gone. No one ever saw Darrell Reese Coleman again. Weeks later, Captain Marks resigned. The corruption probe at Rikers widened. Several guards were arrested, and a sealed report linked multiple officials to contraband operations. But Coleman's body was never found. Some said he drowned in the East River trying to flee again. Others whispered he made it out, changed his name, and vanished overseas. 1 year later, a package arrived at a New York newsroom. Inside was a single cassette tape, labeled in faint ink. For the people who think Rikers is secure, think again. And when the tape played, the voice was unmistakable, tired, angry, defiant. "I didn't escape Rikers," Reese said. "Rikers let me out. The question is, who are they letting out next?" If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because the truth is still out there, and it's darker than you think.